Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on the phone from the band Journey, it is drummer Narada Michael Walden. He has, of course, produced all kinds of great stuff over the years, including Whitney Houston's How Will I Know, and I'm telling you, that is one of the world's greatest pop songs ever written. Alan Niven, Sir Alan Niven, there on the phone. Bonjour. Would you agree with that?
Bonjour.
Yes.
Well, it might have been brilliant if Gene Simmons had done backup vocals, but I'm not sure I'd rate it as one of the greatest. I tell you what I will say about Narada Michael Walden. He's an extraordinary individual, apart from the fact he's born in the same year as me. Joking aside, he's really an extraordinary individual because he has incredible precision and technique. But on top of that, he has amazing feel. And it's not always a case that you'll find that somebody has great precision and great technique and great feel. And it's quite often that somebody with great feel doesn't really have that much precision and technique. But here's an individual who quite obviously has both to a degree of extraordinary excellence. You're talking about somebody who can play with Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin and yet produce really good singles that feel great. And that's where I'll agree with you. The one that comes to my mind is Freeway of Love with Aretha and Clarence. I mean, that's just a great feeling R&B track. But, you know, that would be my thumbnail response to you saying, Narada Michael Walden. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was interviewing him, and we're talking about his 24th annual holiday jam, and you'll hear all the info during the interview. And he's got a new album out called Immortality. But then as I'm talking to him, I'm like, oh, you've worked with the Temptations and Steve Winwood and Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight and Elton John and Al Jarreau, and it's just like you couldn't find an A-lister and all of that. I mean, no, I mean, Jesus, look at that. I mean, it's just the creme de la creme. I mean, what a career, what an absolute career. And of course now with Journey, I don't want to say anything disparaging about anybody in Journey because I love the band, but now you add in him. And I'm forgetting the bass player now who was on Raised on Radio from American Idol. Please help me out.
Bass player for American Idol?
Oh, my Lord. I'm forgetting it. Hold on.
Oh, do you mean Randy Jackson?
Yeah, yes. Sorry. Wow.
One of the Jacksons.
Yeah, complete brain. Yeah, so he's got Randy Jackson. Journey's got Randy Jackson and Narda, and it's just like, you know, I'm excited. I really think that other than the original lineup with Steve Perry, this is going to be really interesting because that rhythm section. Now that's a rhythm section. That's a rhythm section. Yeah. And you've got Narda who produces all these singles and all these songs from, like I said, Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, George Benson, Mariah Carey, Ray Charles. And he's going to sit in that studio with Neil, and Neil's going to have his vision, and Narda's just going to go, here's how you get to that place. And it's just going to be phenomenal.
Well, I'm going to drop another name on you, too.
Yeah, Clarence.
Because, well, no, not Clarence. I'm going to drop a name on you that I would think that there's an awful lot of people who might listen to us may be totally unaware of. Now, I am not a great lover of jazz. It's got to be something extraordinary to be able to get my simplistic brain to embrace it. In a Silent Way, for example, by Miles Davis, I think is just extraordinary. But, you know, Narda used to play in a band called Weather Report. And Weather Report was a band that I used to listen to regularly. I had loved their albums. I thought they were really cool and interesting, and you could go with them. You know, they carried you emotionally as well as intellectually. There's an awful lot of jazz that to me is just like, I get the point. You know, you made your intellectual point, but you haven't moved me emotionally. But Weather Report would move me emotionally.
Well,
So
I'm going to tell you,
check that band out.
we actually talked about Weather Report in the interview. I mentioned Jaco Pastorius, and I said, well, you got to play with Jaco, and what was it like? Yada yada yada. And he gave me the whole story about how he got to meet Jaco and how there was Weather Report going on and this and that, and how they you know what? Let's just go listen to the interview. We talk Journey, we talk Jaco, we talk Weather Report, we even talk Luba, who's a Canadian hero because he produced a song for her called How Many that actually won a Juno, our Grammy, right? So here,
Wow.
yeah, I know. The guy's a Canadian Grammy winner, or a Juno, as we call them. Here is the one, the only drummer extraordinaire. Yes,
Before you go,
not drummer extraordinaire.
here's my question for you.
Yes.
Did you talk about Tommy Bolin?
Oh, I'm not sure if the name Tommy Bolin came up, but we got a nice long conversation about Jaco Pastorius. I can tell you that much. So are we ready? Here is the one.
We're ready.
The one, the only.
A true legend.
True legend, drummer extraordinaire, somebody that I could also call Sir if I wanted to. And why not? Here is Sir Narada Michael Walden. We are speaking to a drummer, producer, and all-around good guy, Narada Michael Walden. He's a holiday jam show is coming up on December 24th and 25th and 26th. You can certainly check that out, and you can donate if you're interested in supporting the foundation and their commitment to music education at paypal.me /music edu 2020. And as we say here in Montreal, bonjour, Narda. How are you? Comment allez-vous?
Oh, God bless you, Mitch. I'm really good. I'm very happy, very happy to come in this morning and say hello to you and to all your listeners, and to wish everyone a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and the New Year coming. And it's going to be a wonderful New Year. So we're going to enjoy today, which is Christmas Eve.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? and have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great time. So talk to me about the music foundation or the music education and what got you involved with that. Because, over the years, over the last 20, 30 years, here in Quebec and in Canada, and especially in the States, music education has slowly been eroded from schools, has slowly been eroded from almost a public consciousness. Talk to me about the importance of having music education and music for kids.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us, like you, Mitch, and myself, and when we came up, we had some kind of music in the school, be it band or, choir or music appreciation, where they would play a little Tchaikovsky so you recognize Peter and the Wolf. Something would happen. And then as I became older in my life, I was a part of the Grammy board, the Grammy institution for education. I realized that the music was no longer in the schools. So we had to actually make programs to go in the schools and put music in there. That's when I realized how bad it was. And out where I live here, there's a group of children, and they're called the Performing Stars of Marin. And I really took a liking to them, to help educate them and give them my love. And then from that love in that pocket, I just kind of grew this Narada Michael Walden Foundation, where I just wanted to bring singers here locally or from the Bay Area, and maybe some dancers or drummers or instrumentalists, and then mix them in with the famous people who they would look up to, so they had a chance to actually work with them. And then that I saw coming out of it, each person was inspired. The kids got inspired and got their confidence up, and the legends who would come through felt inspired and got even more confidence dealing with the children. So there was a real magic that was happening about this. So now I'm on to my 24th year of doing this, and I just see that it's a needed thing. Music, as we know, is God's language. If God speaks to us in silence with meditation and prayer, then right next to silence comes music. So music is something that we need in life.
Well,
I just feel that whatever I can do to take my energy, which I have a lot of energy, and if I can use my energy for good and to help inspire kids and people, this is what I want to do.
And I was just going to add that the importance of music has been especially shown during this pandemic. Most of us, or a lot of us, have reverted back to, watching Netflix and listening to our favorite albums and listening to our favorite music and getting through moments of, whether it's depression or sadness or whatever, with the music. And of course, we're all crying for one thing, and it's live shows, which guess what? Is music. So, the one thing the pandemic has made us realize is how invasive in our lives music is on a good sense. So that's I love the fact that you're doing that. Now this foundation and the 24th annual, is it just for the Bay Area, or does the foundation make donations, for example, to a school in New York City, or is it localized or is it national?
We have focused on the Bay.
Okay.
The needs here in the Bay Area have been so kind of great in a way that I've just really focused here. Not to say that the needs aren't great everywhere else, but we've had our hands full just with the Bay Area primarily. So that's been our real focus. But I would like at some point in our future, if the good Lord wants us to expand it, that's fine too.
Well, let's hope it expands, and if not, let's hope other local charities take up the challenge and do the same for their communities. I mean, why not?
Yes, very, very important.
I want to ask you a couple
I can't say enough how much, for example, when I see Martha Reeves and the Vandellas from Detroit, when they fly out here and they sing Dancing in the Street and get everybody going, get all the people excited, and how much the kids learn by watching her up close, because Martha, in particular, is very hands-on, how she wants the tambourine to go, how she wants the drums, the trumpets, the trombones, the saxes, every little thing she's educating us. So the kids are watching this, and they learn from this the same way I do. So all this like back and forth, man, has been a great education, which is like magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to just ask you a couple of questions on other topics, because you did have, of course, a solo album earlier this year. But before we get to the solo album and of course, the obligatory Journey question, you had a chance to work with Jaco Pastorius back in 1976, and he is revered as one of the great bass masters, one of the absolute fantastic ones. When you go into that, is there an education for you? Do you learn from him? Does he learn from you? And what was it like being around him? And of course, Carlos Santana and all these other people.
Well, let's slow down. Hey, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Jaco and I, it's a very cool history, because I was down in Florida, Miami, Florida, and I wasn't known yet. I was in a band called the New McGuire Sisters, with Sam Turano and a band that he had put together of fusionary people. And we were playing fusion every night. And I would go to the Miami school. And at the Miami school would be all these hotshots who weren't known yet, but they were going to be superstars, like Pat Metheny, Hiram Bullock, Cliff Carter, Patti Scialfa, who's now married to Bruce Springsteen. She was down there. The whole place was flooded with all these great musicians, Lyle Mays and his band. So everyone was down at this time. Just it seemed like a hot pocket. But then I heard, hey, man, down the road, he doesn't go to the school, but he's a badass bass player. You got to go check him out, named Jaco. So we heard about Jaco before, I actually met him. Then one day, it worked out for me to be invited to come to his home to just jam with him. He and I, just bass and drums in his living room, just jammed. That went on almost all day long. That's how we really became best of friends. And I realized what he likes to do is, if I play 4/4, he plays 7/4 over my 4. Then we reverse it. I play 7, he plays 4 across me. He liked that friction. Then he also liked when I would push him, because he had phenomenal technique. So when I push him, or he would just go to some place that was just like otherworldly. So we became best of friends. And then when I moved to New York to be with Mahavishnu Orchestra, he might come to New York and we'd hang out. So wherever I went, even out to California, we'd hang out. Along the way, in 75, I was asked to join a band called Weather Report. I recorded a song called Black Market with Joe and Wayne live in the studio, Alex Acuna on percussion, and Alfonso Johnson on bass. Alfonso was going to leave the band, and then Joe asked me would I join the band and bring a bass player. I said I wasn't sure if I could join the band, because I might want to join a band with Tommy Bolin, more the rock side of that time. But I knew a bass player named Jaco from Florida. And Joe said, yeah, I think I've heard of him. So we flew Jaco out, and his audition the next morning was a piece called Cannonball on the Weather Report album. And in the learning of that song, two things. One, I would take my cassette machine and have Joe play the whole song, and I'd record it. I can go out in the hallway and memorize it because it had all these different changes. I had to memorize it, get it in my soul. But in the teaching of Joe to Jaco the song, Jaco started playing all these extra notes and extra things, and then Joe would stop and say, "Don't play that stuff on my song. Don't play that on my song." And when I saw Joe do that to Jaco, it forced the best out of Jaco. It forced Jaco to settle down and play what was absolutely the genius thing as opposed to just because he could. And in that song, Cannonball, was so beautiful then that Jaco joined that band. And the next album was Heavy Weather with Teen Town and Birdland and all that fantastic music. And then, of course, they toured together, and he became, Jaco Pastorius. And then on his solo album, he asked me, would I come play drums on Come On, Come Over. And that was cut live at Bobby Columbia's house up in upstate New York.
Hold on, let me tell you where.
Sam,
let me tell you where it was.
And the horn sections live. Everything was live. It was so cool.
Right.
So, Jaco at that time was also revered. And he was very much like a Muhammad Ali because he was outspoken about his talent and his gift. And we all would love him because of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, he had a addiction issue.
Yeah.
Which came out later in his life, which comes out in a lot of people's lives. So anyway, we miss him, but he put down such genius that we are talking about him today. Yeah,
and the recent documentary about his life was just brilliant, just an absolute masterpiece of documentary work. I want to bring you back just here quickly to some Canadian content because I'm always amazed. There's a lady up here called Luba who I would run into locally because she literally would come and visit a house not too far down the street. And you did her How Many video from her Between the Earth and Sky, got a Juno Award for Video of the Year. How did Narda end up working with a local Montreal talent?
It's been so long ago now. We had just opened the doors at Tarpeian Studios maybe in 84, 85. And Luba was one of the first things we did here in our brand new studios at that time. And I'm not quite sure how the connection happened. I think she was a superstar somehow that we thought we could take even higher. And we loved her sound and what she was doing with her band. And the record company called us, and we had a good feeling. And in came Luba. And we did a great song together. We had a great session together. And the keyboard player, I think his name was Mark. We all had a good feeling. We did wonderful music together. And even to this day, I'm still close to Luba. I talk to her every now and again on a text or email or whatever it is. I just thought she was a phenomenal talent, and we had a nice connection. And it just, as God would have it, way back in '85, kind of just hit it off, man. And we never did anything since, but I sure would like to.
I think so too, because she's absolutely terrific. Now, I'm sort of rushing through the topics here because I have to leave in 15 minutes. I have an appointment because I had an accident last week, so I got to get to this. But just real quick, you joined Journey, and you're working on new music, and Neal has you in there. Talk to me about that, because you got Randy Jackson and Arnell, who of course is just a fantastic singer. How do you feel about joining that band and bringing them to a new audience and bringing some new music to the folks, because it's been a while and everybody wants it.
Said it. Yeah, you just said it. Bringing new music, because Journey's history is phenomenal, and it's like a mountain. It's like the Himalaya Mountains, what they put down since the '80s. I mean, I've always known them because we're in the same Bay Area here, and Neal and I have been friends. And Randy came out of my camp before he even joined Journey. He was with me on all the Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston recordings and things I was doing. So it's all like a family feeling. Jonathan Cain is a great writer and great musician as well, and we're all close. So it's like I had done an album for Neal, which is just out now, called The Universe. And in the making of The Universe, we became close all over again. We cut 17 tracks for The Universe. And I think we really enjoyed working together. And then maybe not long after, he asked how would I feel about helping out and joining Journey and bringing some new energy to Journey. And at the time, there was a tour, like a long tour they were going to go on. So this is before COVID hit. I said, well, sure, I'd love to join, and we'll do the tour. So that's what it was meant to be, a tour. But then when the COVID hit, we said, well, maybe we could just separately start working on writing some new music. And then that's what we started doing, was kind of composing different songs and having fun doing that. And now we've kind of built a collection of songs. So it's been fun for me. Everything I get into, I want to do it because it's fun. It's an opportunity. And I know that whenever it does calm down, the virus, we can play some great music together. So for me, I'm excited for new things to happen. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to it because, if Neal puts his stamp of approval on something, it's a high quality and it's going to be fantastic. Immortality is your album that came out earlier this year. There's a track on there, in fact, one of the first singles, called We Can Live Forever. That is just one of the greatest tracks of 2020. It's fun, it's funky, it's rocky, it's the musicianship on that. Remind me of the guitarist real quick. Matthew
Charles Hewlett.
Dude, that guy can rip. I mean, the solo he does in that song is fantastic.
Yeah, he comes from the Bay Area too. Well, actually, I should say he's born and raised out where I'm from in Michigan. He's from Detroit. I'm from Kalamazoo, so we have a Michigan connection. But we found each other out here in the Bay Area, and I like the fact that he can kind of play jazz, rock, like Mahavishnu style when I want it. But he can also play like just bucket blues rock too. So I like mixing those worlds up, and you're hearing that on that We Can Live Forever.
It's a phenomenal track. Do you plan at some point to tour that when touring is available?
We would love to do like a little jaunt and play some great live music, which we love doing. But as you know, this whole thing has slowed everyone down now, so we're just kind of rethinking everything. And I maybe can, from my studio, make a live streaming event around that album or something next year when things kind of calm down. We'll figure out some kind of way to kind of keep things going. But I like that music of Immortality very, very much. And that's a very cool band. On the bass is Angel Funk, Angeline Saris. On keyboards is Frank Martin, who's been with me for a long time. And so we have a lot of fun together with that band.
And let me just ask you this before we wrap up here. You're obviously a drummer and a musician, but you're a producer, and you've done some of the greatest songs. In fact, one of my guilty pleasures is How Will I Know by Whitney Houston. As a young metalhead back in the day, listening to Judas Priest and Def Leppard and Kiss and all that, I saw that song, and I never told anybody I loved it, but I loved it. What is it? What do you prefer most? Do you prefer producing? Do you prefer playing? And is the creativity the same for you, or is the creativity completely different?
That's a very good question. What I prefer doing the most is sweating. I like to be on a stage with people and sweat. That's the highest rush in the world. When the music itself is just immediate, like a prize fight. You're just doing it. You're just right in the middle of it, and you get lost in it, and you're out there somewhere. That's incredible. Then I learned the art of how to make a record, which changes all the time. The art is to stay open and to be willing. So if you're willing in the studio, you can make a hit, but you got to be willing. If you're not willing, you shut down. God won't bless you. God does not bless the session. So how will I know? We were willing. Whitney Houston was willing to sing that song and sing all the high stuff and kill it. The writers of George Merrill and Luba Campbell were willing to let me write some verses in there, and I was willing to hop on a plane to go to New York. My cats, Randy Jackson, Corrado, Rustici, and Preston Glass, and Walter and Frank were willing to cut it. So the willingness aspect is really important in the studio. If you're willing, you can do all kind of great things. But to say one's more favorite than me another, I like to sweat and play my drums. But beyond that, I love being around people and helping to make great music that we can all love for years to come. It's a real honor for me, a real pleasure. And I'm a real fan of music. I'm a real fan of artists. I'm a fan of being sensitive enough to let the singer and whoever it is shine. Help them shine. Help them get their best.
Help them get their best. Let me ask you this:
help them get their best, because it's a process.
Well, it is.
Sometimes, most normally, it is the first few things you do. But like in Michael Jackson's case, he sang Billie Jean 92 times, but they end up keeping the second take. But that process of 92 times is important.
Yeah. Can you imagine if he had done it with Mutt Lange? It would have been 192 times.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. Let me just ask you this: in terms of production, other than the technique of cutting tape and Pro Tools and that kind of stuff, has the point of view of producing for you changed over the years? You know, is a producer who was successful in the 80s, can he still take his 80s sort of brain and come into 2020, or has the whole, do you have to sort of rethink how albums are put together these days, getting away from the Simmons drums and all, and the technical stuff? Just the point of view of this is a good song, has that changed?
No. You have to understand what is a good song now, because, the goalpost changes. Like what we thought was a good song in the 60s may not be what they think is a good song now. So you have to understand where the audience is at. That's why I have to, as a producer, understand or listen to the top 10, top 20, kind of figure out what planet we're on. Because it changes from year to year. The taste, the tempo, the sounds, the colors, the vibrancy, the consciousness. You want to party? No, right now we're not going to party. Right now we want to be sad. Right now, okay, now we want to party again. So it keeps kind of changing around. But you got to kind of follow it, because you want to be you want to have an ability about you to be psychic, to be able to predict.
Well, you need to stay ahead of the curve,
now,
right?
Where it might be a year from now, based on where it is now, where it might be 6 months from now.
Right.
So then that comes into play the song. The song is always the star. Let me say that again. The song is always the star. So that's important, the most important. But then how you dress it, that's when you think about where we are as a people, what we're going to want to hear, what we're going to want to hear over and over and over and over and over again. So that is a real conscious thought.
It really is. And here, last question. You're out with, of course, all the different bands as a drummer and the orchestra that I can never pronounce the first name, Manhu.
Mahavishnu.
Oh, I wish I could. I'm not capable.
Mahavishnu.
Mahavishnu. See, look at that. I said it. After 52 years, I finally got it. But what was that moment that clicked in you that said, hey, you know what? I want to be on the other side of that window. I want to be the guy pushing the phasers and the buttons and the things. And what was that moment where you just said, you know what? I can do this. I can make a great song on that other side.
I think two things happened. One, the first album I made was with the Beatles producer, George Martin, in London in his studio, watching him work and seeing how relaxed and calm he was with his great engineer, Jeff Emmerich. The second album I made was with Ken Scott, Visions of the Emerald Beyond. He had worked with the Beatles, too, did the White Album as engineer and all that, watched how he worked, learned some of his tricks. Third album was Dennis Mackay. My first solo album was with Tommy Dowd, who did Allman Brothers and Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, and all the Atlantic superstars. Watched him work. So by just watching, you get a chance to learn so much. And then Quincy Jones told me, he said, you might want to consider being a producer and a helper, because we need more helpers in the world of production. So when he told me that, I kind of took it a little bit more serious. And then I started making my own records. I had a little hit with I Should Have Loved You, my own dance hits, with Bobby Clear Mountain helping me. And then I decided I would ask about Stacey Lattisaw, take a pop star, a little girl, and see what I could make for her as far as pop hit records. When we had a hit with Let Me Be Your Angel, Dynamite, Jump to the Beat, Love on a Two-Way Street, then all those phones started ringing, from Clive Davis to do maybe Aretha Franklin or Dionne Warwick or whatever. So Jermaine Stewart. So, things kind of happened naturally. But it wasn't like me saying, I'm going to just all of a sudden become a producer. I had to watch other people and kind of learn it, learn the skill of production. Because everyone has a different way of doing it. Some producers are more like engineers. Some producers are just music aficionados. In my case, I'm a musician, first and foremost. So I'm very hands-on because I'm a musician. I know kind of what I want it to sound like. So I take that into it. At the same time, depending upon who I'm working with, I give them a lot of room to breathe. So that's kind of what it is. It's a nice balancing act.
Yeah, and
I learned it through watching others.
Yeah, that's the way. That's definitely the way to do it. Man, I could go on for another half hour, but unfortunately, I have to go to an appointment. But
I love you for this interview, Mitch.
Yeah,
and,
but I just want to remind the folks.
Our show.
Narda, Michael.
From Clarence Clemens and Carlos Santana and Dewey Brothers and all of our friends locally. So have a good time watching these kids perform.
Absolutely. And Narada Michael Walden Foundation.org, Narada Michael Walden Foundation.org. And on that, Narada, as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Un plaisir, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so kind, Mitch. We'll talk back next year.
Absolutely. Cheers now.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye now.